So say for example, someone's married and they have a chick like on the side, also known as the Sancha. Can they like leave everything like to the Sancha, like in a will, and just like
I'm
carve out the kids and the wife?
I'm
Okay,
assuming you're
so
asking for a friend.
Several.
right. I was going to say, I was going to say, if this is for personal reasons, then you have a lot more problems than that, buddy. But, but
Pam, I have some
that's
duct tape and some bleach. We'll take care of this.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But that is an interesting because um, who your property can go to. So remember that Texas is a community property state. So that means pretty much half of what you own belongs to your spouse that was acquired during the marriage, more or less. So you are not entitled to dispose of your spouse's half. So you can't say, "Oh, I'm giving my house to my side piece." Like you can't do that because your spouse owns half that house. However, you can give your interest in your property to whoever you want to. So even though I hate to say it, yes, you can write a will that says I want my side piece to have all of my interests, and you can cut out your children and whoever else you want to cut out. You just can't divest your spouse of their property. But yeah, I mean, you're allowed to give your property to whoever you want to. It doesn't have to be family. It doesn't have to be anyone related to you.
Hello, listeners. Hope you all are doing good out there. I got with me today Victoria Muniz. How you doing, Victoria?
Hey, F, good. Hope everybody's doing well too.
We have a guest with us today. We have.
Whoa. You just called her a guest. She's a super special, amazing guest.
Okay,
I probably should have done the introduction.
you're right. Well, let me rephrase. We have the beautiful, the talented, the wonderful, the best wife on the planet, Pamela S. Alexander.
Hi, Victoria.
So you tell us briefly your background.
So I grew up in McAllen, and I started off at what used to be UTPA, University of Texas Pan American, which is not that anymore. But I got an undergraduate in business and a master's in business, and then I went to law school and got my JD, and I also got a master's in financial planning. And I worked for what used to be Smith Barney, which was a financial planning firm in Midland. That's where I worked. And that's it. And I've been private practice since 2009.
And
Wow.
you used to teach classes too, right?
I did. I used to teach business classes, finance classes, business law classes and finance classes for undergraduate and master students.
So, well, the reason why we brought you on, Pam, is because you do probate, right? What is probate?
Probate is the process when someone passes away, how to dispose of their assets and the things that they owned when they were alive.
So,
And what for even people who don't even understand that part, what exactly is an asset? Like what's something that would be part of a probate?
Okay, so probate is what belongs to you when you die. So, for example, your house, your car, all the things that you own when you die is part of what's called your estate. Things that you own are your assets. When it comes to probate, usually you only have to probate an estate when you have like bigger items, when you own a home, when you own a vehicle. Those types of things have titles. So it's important that the title passes clearly to your family members or whoever you want to own the property after you're gone.
and Pam, I've seen some of your probate clients, and I know Victoria has witnessed for some of your probate clients, and the majority of them seem to be death is knocking like on their door. That's when they come to like see you, right?
It is. I do have a clientele, okay, and more experienced in live clientele. I would say that.
Pamela does
But
well with the older crowd, especially the older
yeah,
gen.
well, I mean, what can I say? But I try. Um, but yes, that's because probate is morbid. Death is like the one thing that nobody wants to think about, nobody wants to plan for. I mean, it really is a terrible subject. But of course, older people feel like it's coming along sooner rather than
Mm-hmm.
later. So they are the ones that end up doing planning. But it is important for young people. And like I mentioned before, people that have families, it's really important to have guardianship for your children. You never know what, but yeah, I mean the probate clientele is an older generation. I think that's kind of natural of when people start thinking about that.
But I think you're right. I think
Okay.
is there something that makes probate easier, harder, or is it difficult or going through that process?
It can be if you don't plan. So the thing that goes hand in hand with probate is estate planning. So, and estate planning, when people hear that, they think, oh, wow, you have to have a lot of money or own a lot of property estate planning, but that's not true.
I was gonna say I
Um,
have like four things in my house that people may want, otherwise it's just junk.
but you have your house
That's
and you
true.
have your car. Yeah, so you have those things that, and most people, most, middle, um, middle income people have one house and one car.
Mm.
I mean, that's the norm unless have more assets than that. But even owning one house, one car, you need to have some sort of estate planning. So probate becomes a lot more difficult if you had no planning. So if a person just dies and they didn't have a will, they didn't have any type of plan in order for their property to pass, there are other types of non-probate transfers that can also be done through estate planning. But it does become a lot more challenging for the family if you don't have a will.
So
Okay.
when people die, it's either they die with a will or without a will, right?
That's right. So it's called testate and intestate, but yes, with a will or without a will.
I'm getting flashbacks now from law school in wills and estates, and it was just oof, no.
Yeah, a lot of people, even this topic like makes them physically ill,
Yeah.
remembering everything they went through. Yeah, that's how I feel when I hear bankruptcy or something like that. It's just, but
Yeah. So one of the things that I've heard, and I think I've asked you this question before, because I don't do probate. I don't think I've ever done a will before. Is some people will say I have a power of attorney. Is that the same thing as a will?
that is a really important question. So a power of attorney is valid until that person dies. So the
Okay.
second that person dies, that is when the will actually comes into play.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of people think, oh, my aunt died, but I have a power of attorney. So once she died, that's it. That document is no longer useful. It means nothing.
Yeah, because I've heard that people have asked before, and I had asked you probably years ago, and you're like, no, you gave me the same explanation. But a power of attorney, I guess right now with like what's going on with COVID, people are stuck in the hospital. Some people are being intubated. And so that's when the power of attorney would come into play, but they would still need a will if they were to pass away. So that way, their assets can be taken care of. And so that way their family doesn't have any issues.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right now, the COVID-19 stuff going on, it's really important to have. I know it's a little bit morbid and nobody really wants to think about these
Yeah.
things. Um, and I was telling Efren the other day, I've gotten like 20 calls in the last weeks, and it's just sad that, people are going through this.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, so right now with everything going on, it is important to have, there are two general types of powers of attorney. There's like the financial power of attorney, someone that can deal with your accounts. And then there's the medical power of attorney. And those can be
Okay.
two different different people who are in charge. But yeah, a lot of people are in the hospital. They need people to make decisions for them. And those are really simple documents. It's not something that's really elaborate or that's going to take an attorney, a month to draft for you. It's really simple. And then the will is, of course, only if the person passes away, but that's something that we should all plan for.
And when it comes to, I guess, wills, like you said earlier, like a lot of people think like, oh, if I don't really have anything, it's not, it's not something that I need or it's not important. But you're saying you have a house, if you have a car, at the bare minimum, a will is definitely something that you should get.
Right. So a will, there are other estate plan tools that can even bypass a will.
Okay.
There are special types of transfers that you can bypass probate completely. And of course, that's a different situation just depending on the person. But wills have more of a purpose than just disposing of your property. If you have children,
Mm-hmm.
a will is very important document because you list there who you want to be your children's guardian. So if something happens to you, it's not just your property. I mean, what's more important than your property? Well, your kids.
Yeah.
So there, and in the code, there's an order. If something happens to you, who would have priority over your children? But the first person that has priority is whoever you listed in your will. So it could be a friend would have priority over your parents, or so they go to the top of the list of who would get guardianship over your children. The other thing also is people will have like family heirlooms, things that are important to them. I've had clients that, oh, well, my dad wanted me to have his gun collection or, something ridiculous. There are ridiculous too, but, but that's
well,
where
that would be my dad and my brother. My brother and my dad, they have like amazing gun collections. And so it would be like, yeah, everybody has like probably their set, like, oh, I want so-and-so to have this one.
Yeah, those things are important to people. So yeah, that's where you list all those things. People will put even their body dispositions in there. They want to be cremated and all that. I mean, yes, it's usually too late by the time the will's probated, but
Yeah,
it is something that people put in there just so their family can see this is what I wanted, and so there are more reasons than just disposing of your property to have a will. And it's not a long or expensive process. I mean, wills are not thousands of dollars. It's not something that, that's cost prohibitive, really. It's really worth the
and
time.
And that was going to be my next question are wills like something, because you always see like LegalZoom, you can do it on your own, or people doing their own will. Is it something that it's simple that they could do on their own, or is it, well, the more things you have, maybe you probably should consult an attorney? Or is it just something that it is cost effective? Like if you go and get a will, it's not gonna, put you out.
Right. And that's a really good question. Yeah, people see like LegalZoom and all that. I'm not going to say that those documents don't work sometimes, but there are like certain things like Texas. You have to have like a document that works in Texas because there are certain provisions in Texas law that maybe aren't the same in Alabama or another state. So sometimes we'll see like what we call foreign wills, even though it's state foreign wills from other states that it's like, it's not the appropriate form.
Mm-hmm.
It is important to try to consult with an attorney if you're doing your will, just to have peace of mind since it isn't cost prohibitive. But a person can do their own will. There's just certain rules and they kind of have to do their research. There's different kinds of wills and certain ones require signatures from witnesses. And so it's just something that unless you're really going to get into it and make sure that you have the right form and you're doing it the right way, it's probably just easier to visit with an attorney.
And what like lessons like have you learned from like people who are like doing their wills? They see death coming for them. Do they ever tell you anything like I wish I could have done this, I wish I could have done that, these are my regrets?
Well, I'm not exactly like with them at their deathbeds, so I don't really know. I mean, I don't really know a lot of what they're what their regrets in life are. But usually people come to see me because something has happened to someone that they know and it scares them. So that's where a lot of it, especially the older people, like they'll be in those you know mobile park homes where there's like 50 50 homes, and then a friend of theirs dies and they find out they didn't have a will. So all of a sudden about 10 of them will flock over to get their wills done
Oh, wow.
because yeah. So it that's kind of what I guess lights the fire in a lot of people. But I don't know a lot about what their regrets in life are or anything like that. I don't have insight as to that usually.
I guess under these circumstances, you know, maybe somebody who has like a blended family, I'd say, would that be like another reason why they for sure want to do a will? Like if they have children from a prior marriage or children outside of a marriage and things like that. I vaguely remember that in like property and wills and that's usually when issues come up.
Yeah, actually, that's like every law school question, I think, regarding wills is someone's daughter from the first marriage, that sort of thing. But yes, that's really important because if you die intestate or you die without a will, then the state has their heirship set up a certain way. So your property goes the way that the state determines. So your children from your first marriage get a certain amount and your surviving spouse gets a certain amount. So it's not something that you decide. You're
Yeah.
leaving it up to the state with this standard, distribution.
And it
Um,
makes no difference if, because a lot of the times people will say, well, he said he wanted, his second cousin to have his card. And it's like, well, unless it's actually written down on paper, it's not going to happen. For example, I know you and F, you made sure that you all had wills done. And I was like, well, I guess we're not getting that car that F has hidden away in his garage because I didn't see my name anywhere on there.
yeah, he did his promises. Yeah. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I mean, I had a family, and it was several siblings that actually wrote down and agreed that their father had agreed to this one getting something. But like to them, that was like official because they all agreed to it. But the father didn't create a will, so
Yeah.
but people feel like if it was said or something, that is enough. And I understand that people feel that way, but unless it's documented, then it goes by the distribution under state law.
What about leaving your dog? Can you do that? Because she puts up with me day out. So
Yes, actually, that's yeah, you can leave your pets to someone. I mean, people even, it's been several years, but I've done about 3 or 4 pet trusts for people because
what is
people even.
what is that exactly?
So a pet trust is similar to just a trust you would leave for your children, but the beneficiary is your pet. But you have to have it in a way, the way that it's designed is you have a person that it's for that's taking care of the pet, but it's very specific as to you get nothing unless the pet is cared for.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I
That,
haven't done one in a long time, but I've done a few over the years.
if I'm not mistaken, I think that concept comes out in an old Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, before Kevin Spacey we found out all those terrible things about him. But it was set in like Savannah, Georgia, and so I think John Cusack, he's visiting the area and he sees this person walking basically just a leash, and he's like, what is that person doing? And so somebody tells him, well, he gets X amount of money as long as he walked this person's dog. The dog passed away, but he's walking the ghost, so he keeps getting his money.
He can still have his money.
Something like that. Oh,
Yeah,
how
that's
bizarre.
exactly it. Yeah, I mean, because a pet is, not a person to some people, right? But
I was gonna say, Pamela,
right.
you know how we both feel about that subject. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But how some people don't consider pets, particularly dogs, people. you leave it to a person, but it's a condition. You know, there's that condition of the pet. So yeah, walking the ghost pet, I'm not really sure that would fly if anybody, you know, looked into it, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting. But you can leave your pets in a will, and you can even create trusts for your pets.
Oh, wow. That's so bizarre.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is I call it Mexican probate because it seems like when someone dies, what the family does is they basically say, "Hey, let's all get together and whoever can get to the house first and start taking stuff, it's theirs." Do you see a lot of that?
Or the post-its, they go and they put post-its on the things that they want.
Yeah.
I
I've
think
seen it.
that's the classier version. The post-its is classier because they actually don't just take it. Um, yes, that's common, unfortunately. So there's not a lot that can be done until you have someone in charge of the estate. You know, so that's why you have to file a probate, get an administrator or an executor appointed, and then that person takes control of the estate. But yeah, I mean, meanwhile, I mean, who's going to be in charge of that? Nobody until you get someone in charge, appointed.
So regardless if you have a will or you don't have a will, you have the estate has to go through probate.
Oh, the state has to go through probate unless you use like some other type of non-probate transfers. So that can get complicated. But one of the things that is very common now is we use certain types of deeds to bypass probate. So I've had clients that say, look, all I own is a house. I don't want my kids to have to go to court and go through probate for my house. So there's special types of deeds and non-probate transfers that we can bypass that. So that's kind of like the new wave of estate planning to completely bypass probate. The other thing that is very important is that, and this is just everybody, any type of accounts that you have, whether it's a 401k, just a basic free checking account, savings account, they should all have beneficiaries listed, because that is taken care of in probate, but you have to wait until the probate's done. If you have a beneficiary listed, they just take your death certificate in and they get their money. Like there's no waiting, there's not a long process. So that's important. So sometimes you can create an estate plan that bypasses probate completely. But if you don't do that stuff, yes, whether you have a will or don't have a will, it goes through probate. It's just, is it going to be the probate of a will, or is it going to be an heirship where you have to determine heirs and who's going to get what, and that's more complicated.
That's more, yeah. That's why it's important, I guess, at the very beginning, just go talk to a lawyer and they can probably explain to you, you should go this route or based on what you have. Because I imagine it's not people come into your office and you're like, oh yeah, we'll just do a will, because you're saying that there's ways that maybe for their purposes it's better, like you said, like doing the deed, or there's different things that they can do to kind of tailor to what it is that they want to accomplish.
Yes, exactly. Everybody's a little bit different, and what they own does play into it. I mean, it does change what my advice would be, as far as what they should do. But yeah, I definitely think the process of not having a will and just seeing what happens is just so complicated for families, because they have to go through a determination of heirship where they have to get witnesses that are family friends that aren't even related to come into court, and they have to do an administration where they have to tell the judge what they're doing. I mean, it becomes really cumbersome for the family when you don't have a will or haven't had planning done.
And it also creates probably a lot of tension within the family members, because if you have a will, all you have to say is like, hey, this is what they wanted, that's it.
Yeah.
But then it turns into, well, this one night they said this, and then another time we were at the comadres and they said that they were okay with this, and it's like, that's, that's not gonna fly.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
I was thinking of a question earlier, and I've had this question asked to me before or said to me about where somebody should leave their will. Some people, I think they file it on their own, like they're like, oh, well, I'm gonna go file it in the county records. Is that even necessary?
So that's a really great point. you can file your will in the county records. You can, and there's a process for that. But a lot of people, it becomes public record. And a lot of people don't want their business out there. They're private. They don't want everyone to see their will.
Especially if the side chick is getting everything, or their half.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, you don't need that to be all over the place. But yeah, so no, you don't have to file it. It doesn't have to be filed at all. In fact, this is probably another one of those law school questions. What happens when you find a will 10 years later? Because that happens.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, people will hide it in a mattress, or they'll put it somewhere that they find to be safe, but nobody else knows where it is. So that's one of the things that a probate attorney will probably tell you is right after you do your will, they're going to say, okay, whoever your executor is, you need to let them know that you did. You don't have to show them the will if you're not ready to, but you need to let them know you have a will and where you're going to be keeping.
And make sure that they're at least at an age where they're probably going to outlive you.
So what is it like being married to a crazy person?
I mean, it's hard to say, because you know how when you're in the situation, you don't really see it with the right perspective. You have to like look back like, wow, that guy was crazy. It's like I'm still in it. So, I mean, I know you're crazy, but the extent of it probably will go forever.
Is he as crazy as he was when y'all were younger, or has it gotten progressively worse?
You know what? It's like a different type of crazy.
It's more sophisticated crazy, because now he has money to spend on dumb things.
Right, which I think in a way is worse, because you think like the age and maturity would kind of kick in, but no, it's definitely a lot better. Definitely not better. Yeah.
If we found a will written in crayon in F's handwriting, what would that do to the prior will that was drafted up?
So the most recent will be the one that stands. So if you find one after, of course, I would definitely contest it, but
for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. But yes, I mean, a holographic will that comes later will revoke the prior wills. And usually when a will is drafted, like at the very beginning, it'll say something like, I revoke all prior wills and codicils, so that you don't have that lingering around. But yeah, I mean, the most recent will would be the valid will.
Okay, well, Pam, thank you very much for coming on the show. We appreciate you coming on. And because of certain statements you made, I apologize, but I'm going to have to completely bar you from ever coming back onto the show ever again.
No. Pamela will be back. As we were both saying earlier, it's nice to see people on Zoom that we actually miss.
Yeah, it's a pretty rare occurrence. So, yeah.